It's May 17th, 2022. I'm watching Channel 7 News at 4 o'clock. They have on, for the first time, some UFO trial. Never even heard of this. Something to do with the Naval Office and whatever. They also have on the gentleman, the attorney from Suffolk County, about the local Shannon Gilbert thing that went on. Again, I don't know. Some of the details sound very familiar to something that happened to me when I was younger. But he's saying in the Shannon Gilbert, whatever, well, he'll say it in his own words, but today he's on in black and white. And so the other day he was dressed in something different. And then it goes into two different local maps, one being whatever, and then it goes to a composite. I heard the meteorologist use that word the other night. When he pans out, it's a composite of a larger area, which for some kind of congressional mapping. Now, what's weird is he uses this word. I've only heard the really angry whatevers use, but not in like a face-to-face. They've used it on a vector transmission, where they get on and they're like really angry about something about Jim Crow, but I don't know who that is. And nobody's explained that. It's not part of my American Revolutionary War papers, and it's not part of it's not part of the American unrest in the American colonies. So again, but this time, the man was not as aggressive in his stance, and he said, Jim Crow, and then the word blush. So I don't know if that's some Kiat word that they use for something else. Again, it's not really clear because they haven't really voiced much. Well, whatever's been going on. Feels like in the trapping and poisoning people in place for I don't know what reason. So I'm going to put on the different pieces together, because if the Naval Office is doing UFO work, they should know, since they haven't done anything in 50 years according to the televised portion, they should know that the world is more dangerous 50 years into this. A lot of people have died and disappeared mysteriously, and there's been no answers. I haven't gotten any.
Gilbert family has his theories as to who may have killed Gilbert. Police say they have thoroughly investigated that man, and there is no evidence that he killed her.
I think that Shannon Gilbert was murdered. The evidence of that fact is overwhelming, and the police department have covered that up for all of these years.
Suffolk police have said that they will still accept tips from people about Shannon Gilbert. So if you still feel that you know something, police say that they will look into those tips, and they are encouraging people to contact them about Gilbert. Coming up on Eyewitness News at 5:30, I spoke with a man who identified himself as Joseph Brewer. We heard his voice in those 911 calls from last week. He had Gilbert over at his house in Ocean Beach the night that she disappeared. I asked him about the 911 calls. You will hear from him coming up on Eyewitness News at 5:30. For now, we are live in Yaphank. I'm Kristen Thorne, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Kristen. None of the latest on the pandemic in New York City elevated.
Here's one of the other important headlines about baby formula. that's going on right now with Abbott Labs. There was some kind of whatever. They had to close. Now there's a shortage of them.
The FDA is setting off on a plan to reopen an Abbott Labs facility in order to help ease the nationwide shortage of baby formula. The plant closed back in February following the discovery of a deadly bacteria that made at least 4 babies sick. 2 of them died. However, in order to reopen, the FDA says the facility must follow strict safety guidelines. Abbott says it will take 2 weeks to restart operations and up to 2 months to get its products back onto shelves. Meanwhile, the FDA will begin importing formula from abroad in hopes of getting products back on the shelves in a couple of weeks.
We're seeking manufacturers from around the globe.
All right, this is the part of that they're saying is a UFO trial, whatever that is.
Well, for the first time since the 1960s, UFOs are being discussed at a hearing on Capitol Hill. Members of the House Intelligence Subcommittee and top Pentagon officials are talking about the investigation into their origins and the potential threats that UFOs pose. In 2004, the Pentagon acknowledged tracking more than 140 reports of UFOs, or as they call them, UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. But today, the Deputy Director for Naval Intelligence says that number has now swelled to around 400.
The inability to understand objects in our sensitive operating areas is tantamount to an intelligence failure.
Unidentified aerial phenomena are a potential national security threat.
Well, the Pentagon says it's creating a task force to coordinate data collection efforts on UAPs.
Well, wildfire in New Mexico is
That's at
it's not the largest in the state's history. The fires started as 2 separate ones, but then quickly came together, forming one fire that burned more than 298,000 acres. Authorities say the flames are...
And here's a commercial for David Muir tonight, which goes from the local headlines of domestic terrorism, and then it goes to elsewhere.
New tonight, 10/9 Central on ABC.
Tonight, domestic terrorism, America's battle against extremism. Plus, as countries along Russia's border seek to join NATO, what this historic shift means to global security. World News Tonight with David Muir is the most watched program on all of television.
I want all of this in my Caesar Sportsbook and Casino app.
Like, I don't know if... And, like, this is how I feel like the business world is. I feel like they don't care about human life whatsoever, that this is all they concern themselves with. Casino games, sports games, and whatever.
Slot machines. Yes, what is this? Yes, Caesar. Oh, I love that. Oh, I gotta have that. That'll be awesome. Yes, Caesar. I need that too. Yes, Caesar. I need it all for my sportsbook and casino app. Oh, my sportsbook and casino app is gonna be amazing. I want this. I want that. Yes, Caesar. I want this. Yes, Caesar. And I need this. Can I have this?
No, you can't have food in an app, Caesar.
Well, let's work on it then. Let's make my dream a reality.
Yes, Caesar.
Now, is that supposed to be Tuskegee Institute? I'm just curious. They made a mention about that with Lionel Richie on Sunday morning, just tying all the loose fringe end pieces together. Here's the weatherman.
Okay, man, saving list.
All right, Lee, thank you. New York Democrats gamble to redraw the state's congressional map. It appears to be backfiring. This is a look at the newly proposed map.
Did she just say Democrats and the word gamble? Because the actual New York State Attorney General looks very relatable to that Caesar commercial.
New York's highest court recently ruled that the previous maps were unconstitutional.
And the reversal could pave the way for Republicans to make gains in this year's critical midterm elections. Witness News reporter NJ Burke live in Midtown with more. NJ.
And that's right, Dave. Many experts I've spoken to today say the Democrats simply overplayed their hand in all of this. The new maps will change the face of New York's congressional delegation and may well change the balance of power in Washington. In fact, the state will lose 1 member of Congress simply because the state's population has declined. But yes, there's no question about it. New York is...
Yeah, I don't know where they teach these things. These are rules of a game that I don't know who's handling it.
is solidly Democratic, Dave, and will remain that way. You know, there's nothing about these maps that will change that. What is changing is that the Democrats could lose seats to Republicans. In an interesting shift, the East Side and the West Side will share one congressperson, as Manhattan is going to be divided horizontally rather than vertically. Upper Manhattan and Lower Manhattan will have their own representatives in Congress. The Democratic leaders are furious over all of this, claiming that the new map disenfranchises thousands of black voters by dividing up places like Bedford-Stuyvesant and the northern Bronx, potentially weakening, therefore, the influence of those predominantly black communities.
Now, just out of curiosity, why is that a problem? And why is that newsworthy at night? I really don't hear anything about how my voting rights were taken away completely. But I do hear a whole lot of upset by something called a black population. I don't know who those people are. But they seem to have all of the voice, all of the argument, all of this power, all of this hearsay. They seem to be moving things in some direction while I'm stuck here with no job, no husband to speak of, nothing over 6 foot, so it doesn't count. And a whole lot of other things.
Hakeem Jeffries is urging the courts to intervene.
This special master decides to take the Bedford-Stuyvesant community and shatter it into pieces. One of the most iconic black communities in America. A district that Shirley Chisholm once represented with Bedford-Stuyvesant at the heart of it, and tears up the Bedford-Stuyvesant community. So yes, we have a problem with these maps. It would make Jim Crow blush.
But many experts believe the map will stand and that they're going to have to deal with it. Candidates are already making plans to contend with it, not that they're happy about it. For example, Jerry Nadler will find himself competing for the same congressional district with Carolyn Maloney.
No, these are like... I have no idea who any of these people are. Again, I should mention that Lewis is an only child. He's not a doctor or a PhD or a graduate student that I'm aware of. And I was never offered such wonderful scholarly entry. And the same goes for Linda has 9 brothers and sisters and herself. None of them have ever said that they were a scholar or a doctor of any kind in any kind of like whatever.
Both longtime representatives in Congress, both chairs of very important committees in Washington. More on the map, the impact and reaction to it coming up on Eyewitness News at 6 o'clock tonight. For now, we're live in Midtown. NJ Burke at Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
NJ, thank you. As the investigation into the supermarket massacre.
Here's more freedoms being taken away by fear. States with something called a red flag law. I don't know who gave anybody permission to write a new law, but here we are on this map. Looks like it's a West Coast and a partial East Coast thing. I wasn't asked. I wasn't invited in. I wasn't conferenced with. This is what caught my attention with this, because normally I wouldn't pay attention. It says Tuskegee Institute, and it has a number founded in 1881. Now that's really interesting, because Alexander and I are the double eights. We're also the double threes that make the third 8 possible.
Tuskegee University, with his parents, Lionel Sr., a U.S. Army systems analyst, and Alberta Foster, a teacher.
When did you first realize how unusual your childhood was?
Now remember this is in the middle of the 50s, 60s, right in the middle of the storm of civil rights. And we were these kids growing up on a college campus with everything available to us. That's
great. Okay, so Linda was on welfare. Lewis was in Italy having his father and mother had a grocery store with a small apartment on top of it that they were trying to run inside of the village that was mostly family oriented. But Linda was living with her Irish and American family in New York and totally withheld from college or that possibility. At the same time that he's already going to college and getting a leg up and an advancement, but yet I'm RH negative. So I'm first order of business. So that's really, really important because I'm not just RH positive.
That's the Tuskegee Airmen over there.
World War II heroes.
World War II heroes.
Just walking around.
But you didn't realize they couldn't vote.
He says the campus was his protective bubble.
We just thought that was a normal thing with doctors, lawyers, PhDs. Oh.
Again, I'm first order of business. I'm RH negative, as are the family members around me. And we still don't have a college graduate. Not at that level of doctors and lawyers and things. While we're subjected to what? Becoming pin cushions and inhaling all sorts of noxious fumes. I mean, great. They went from leaded gas to unleaded gas. Can you confirm that, humans? Because I don't have, like, spectrometers and relativity, like, measuring machines. Again, I don't have that level of family within arm's length. They're being withheld from all of that. Star 1978, Star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It is Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.